Maya, please go ahead.
Thank you. You were asking about the role of poets, of writers. I would like to explore two venues here. The first is empathy, creation of empathy. One of the saddest things that happen to people, to a consciousness that lives in conflict, is that we cease to see the uniqueness and individuality of the other. We see the other as having the attributes of the group, right? Rami is not Rami, he's a Palestinian, right? If I'm thinking within the frame of mind of the conflict. And what we want to do is to see each other's uniqueness. And this is a place where literature, where art in general, but literature has a role. About 6 or 7 years back, I was teaching creative writing to young adults. And in the first session, the teens were introducing themselves. And a young woman, she was maybe 16, 17, she said that she came because she comes from a right-wing conservative family, and she is no longer right-wing and conservative. And she made a point of saying it's because she reads. And she mentioned Said Kashua. And she said, I understood that there is another story. So I think this is the first role that we as writers, as artists have, to shed light on the other. This is a crucial job we have. The second venue I'd like to explore is the use of words. One of the things we are seeing, and this is even before before the current crisis in Israel, is the corruption of words. That we use words that no longer describe what they're supposed to describe. I mean, if you ask any Israeli, almost any Israeli, are you interested in peace? Everyone will say yes. Even most of the politicians will say yes. But then if you ask this person, okay, so what needs to happen for there to be peace, for there to be reconciliation? And then the answer you'll get always has a but in it, okay? A B-U-T, okay? I want peace, but the Palestinians need to stop incitement. I want peace, but the Palestinians need to stop terrorism. So what you're getting here is twofold. One is the but, this small, seemingly naive word, is used to lessen the first part of the sentence. Okay, so this is the first thing we need to listen to. And the other, and this is something that we all need to do, is sort of help us all sharpen our listening abilities. If you're asking a person what has to happen for there to be peace or reconciliation, and the person talks about what the other side needs to do, then this is, this is like a red light, okay? We want to hear people talk about what they themselves need to do, okay? Us as Israelis, of course, to begin with. So these are two venues in which I think we have a crucial role as artists.
I'd like to interrogate some of the issue of empathy in particular. There's another aspect of your book that I found really fascinating is the question of forgiveness. And sort of being able to not just understand that the other person in front of you has their own hopes and dreams, and through empathy, but also being able to forgive some of the transgressions of the past, or at the very least to move past them, right? You do this exercise in the book, and it's an exercise I've done multiple times as a journalist, covering war crimes in Syria and whatnot. And I think to myself, this individual here, how is it possible for them to forgive one day? How is it possible for the conflict to end if this person experienced this tragedy, and that tragedy has been multiplied so many times over so many years, right? Let me just read this part from your book. You say, I do exercises. I think myself into those horrible situations that people describe to me. These are obviously the individuals in Rwanda and South Africa that you describe in your book. and I know that my ability to do this as someone who didn't actually experience these things is limited, and ask myself whether I'd be able to forgive in the context of reconciliation. In other words, would knowing that my forgiveness might make a modest, though not decisive contribution to reconciliation, enable me to forgive what would be an unforgivable action in any other context? And I'm not sure I can support my desire to believe that everything is forgivable. To answer this question, I need to put myself in the place where I'm most vulnerable, where my emotions are most primal and raw, my children, and there I find only silence. There I discover that I'm unable to answer, that I can't imagine words to express my deepest and nullifying fear. In the most concrete sense, this is where my consciousness is blocked. I was reminded of this passage when the Shireen Abu Akleh example came up earlier, and I have to ask, I mean, are we beyond the point where we can forgive, where there is sufficient impetus towards moving past that, towards a new sort of future?
Thank you for the question, though it's a hard one. Mahmoud Darwish said that our destiny as Israelis and Palestinians is that we inhabit the same metaphor. And another role we have, I think, is to offer metaphors. I started to write my book on reconciliation I'll just begin by saying I have been a peace activist, a human rights activist all of my life. But then I arrived through my work in Africa, and the first two places I arrived at were South Africa and Rwanda. And smack in the middle, there was another round of violence between Israel and Gaza. When I say between Israel and Gaza, is not to say that there is any equality between the forces. And one day I'm taking my 8-year-old son from day camp. It's in the summer, and there's this war going on. So I'm, thinking I want to get home before there's a siren. And again, I'd just like to say this. I realize that in Tel Aviv we have shelters. In Gaza, there are no shelters. Okay, I realize this. And we're walking, and I ask my son, who's 8, how was your day? And he says, fun. And I ask, what did you do? And he said, we played IDF against Hamas. And I say, what did you do? And he said, we crunched up papers, we made them into balls, and we threw them at one another. And I'm, okay, who won? Though I was quite aware of what I was asking. And he said, no one. After a while, we just got tired, and we stopped.
If only.
But this, in essence, is what happens, because nothing changes after every war like this. Just many, many, many Palestinians are dead, wounded, and lose their homes, and some Israelis as well, of course less. And the discourse in Israel around these times became, 2014, became increasingly extreme and focused around the sentence, there is no one to talk to. There is no partner, which is astonishing. And then I visit South Africa and Rwanda, and I speak to people about the reconciliation processes that they underwent, which are very different, okay? The only similarity is that they're on the same continent. And people are talking with me about reconciliation, the good parts, the bad parts, the prices that they paid, but they are talking about something with substance, whereas at home in Israel, we are talking about something that is non-existent. There is nothing to talk about. So this sent me on this voyage to write the book, in which I actually discussed with people in South Africa and Rwanda, and I said, please teach me what reconciliation is, because I come from a place in which we know nothing. So I started with this question surrounding talking about something that is and talking about something that is not. And the question that I asked myself is whether reconciliation is an onion or an artichoke. And when I give talks about this, I'm getting back to Mahmoud Darwish and the power of metaphors. This is what I ask, because the difference is, of course, that an onion has only layers and an artichoke has a heart And when I began writing the book, I thought, and I'm getting back to your question, that forgiveness would be at the heart of this artichoke. And I found out that it is not. Okay, it is definitely one of the layers, and it is definitely a part of a reconciliation process, but it is not essential to begin with. And there are deeds, there are crimes, there are actions that are very difficult to forgive. And it is not necessary to forgive in order to begin. It has to be up there as something that we want to create as part of the culture of reconciliation. But there are people who cannot forgive, and it's okay for them.
I just want to jump in here in also about the forgiveness issue and South Africa. I think that if you give people, any people, a real hope in the future, the past, the value of the past will diminish.
I agree.
As long as you don't give them a hope in the future and you talk about the forgiveness, I mean, where's the incentive? There's nothing.
I agree completely. And a reconciliation process, I'm going back to your story about the chair on the foot, cannot begin when the chair is on the foot. Of course.
We're talking totally theoretical here.
Of course. Well, in South Africa it was not theoretical. In South Africa, the reconciliation process began after the apartheid regime was over. Okay? And of course, in Israel and Palestine, a reconciliation process will not be able to begin while there is occupation. There is no question about it. What I'm referring to is my surprise that within this process, there are individuals who feel that they cannot forgive, and it's okay. The next generation, reconciliation is a decision. Okay, it's a target you work for. Going back to the language, it is an ongoing process. Okay, we use the present progressive term. Okay, we reconcile many, many, many times, and we choose this every time, and we do so that our children will have a better future. But within this context, even after the maladies are stopped, there are individuals who find it impossible to forgive, and it's okay.
But they will live with it.
Yes.
But they will live with it.
They will live with it because
they have something now. Because they have something now.
And they have hope, and their hope can be the children. Their children will have a different future. And I can say that, for instance, in Rwanda, which is a whole different story, but today Hutus and Tutsis are out of the discourse. And today, if youngsters, Tutsi and Hutu, marry, it is considered a victory of the community. So that's absolutely amazing. And I spoke to people, both Hutu and Tutsis in Rwanda, and of course Tutsis who survived the genocide. And some said, no, I did not forgive, but we are living together. We decided to live together. And sometimes justice cannot be made in the past. Justice can be made only if you look into the future. The justice will be that our children will be equal.